My name is Zuma, a student at UJ doing a PhD in operations management. I will be presenting a paper towards the development of quality standard, a literature review for managing South Africa's carbon emissions. Okay. My name is Simpiwe. I will be doing a presentation of my paper towards developing a quality standard, a literature review for managing South Africa's carbon emissions. The paper ID is 033. Okay, the contributors to this paper is myself, Simpiwe Zuma, Dr. Nita Sukdeo, Head of Department Operations Management at UJ, Professor Naidoo, a research professor at Department of Mechanical Engineering Science at UJ. The abstract of the paper, the United Nations on Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030, entitled Transforming Our World, Stable Aspiration for Urgent Action Towards Climate Change. COP25 re-emphasized the agents to develop actions from all countries to manage carbon emissions. South Africa is economy is carbon based. Most of the industries are driven by coal and emissions, mainly from the electrical generation, the transportation of goods is based on liquid fuels. South Africa has got an abundance of coal. So this study will look at how can we assist in managing the carbon emissions to achieve the COP25 objectives that South Africa committed to. The introduction: South Africa is a diverse population of more than 57 million people, and the economy of South Africa is based on coal, and is the most industrialized country in Southern Africa. It's mainly mining, energy, transport, and manufacturing and agriculture that drives the economy. South African economy is carbon-based. Electricity generation is powered mainly by coal, and the transportation of goods is by liquid fuels extracted from crude oil and coal. The National Development Plan recognized the fundamental role played by the coal as the primary input into energy. According to the NDP 2030, energy sector will promote growth and development by sufficiently investing on energy infrastructure. It predicts that economic activity and welfare will not be disrupted by ensuring that there is adequate supply of electricity and liquid fuels. Renewable energy will generate 20 megawatts of the additional 29,000 megawatts of electricity, and at least 95% of population will have access to grid and off-grid electricity. And climate change related hazards and disasters are managed by strengthening the resilience and adaptability. The problem statement, as mentioned, South African economy is embedded on thermal coal generation and liquid fuel for transportation. These are both primary sources and contributors to carbon emissions, as well as job and the economy of the country. South African energy supply is dominated by coal, about 59%, renewables about 20%, crude oil 16%, natural gas 3%, and nuclear 2%. South Africa is a signatory to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, where signatories are required to outline their contributions to global goals of reducing national greenhouse gas emissions and adapting impact to climate change. To achieve this commitment, reducing dependence on coal and liquid fuels is essential. This commitment also influences the job and affect the economy. These complexities of this interdependency require a systematic approach to assist in achieving the national development commitment by South Africa to the UN. This paper will seek to propose development strategies and quality standard of measurement and management of climate change in moving South Africa transition from carbon-based economy over the next 3 decades. The current data shows that energy is about 67%, accounting for 67% of overall emissions. The study was done in 2012. We don't have any recent results for that. And industry is about 13%, transport 9%, other land use is 6%, and waste is 4.2%. And the next slide, it shows the growth of carbon emission in South Africa since 2000 to 2012. You can see the growth from 434 megatons of CO2 emissions. In 2012, we were sitting at about 518. That shows the growth of the emissions that we are emitting to the air. And we've done a study, and we saw that ISO have developed about 22,000 international standards related to globally recognized guidelines and frameworks based on international collaboration and consensus. Stakeholders can get a solid base that can contribute to the achievement of every SDG. As every SDG, there is a standard, ISO standard, that can help in achieving the objectives. And risk management is a very critical process that we need to embed in our management of climate change. World Economic Forum Global Risk Perception Survey has listed environmental related risks very high. Top 3 risk by probability and 4 by impact of a survey are related to environmental extreme weather events. Climate change is ranked second behind the extreme weather events in terms of the risk. The world population has got about 12 years to turn the tide to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius target outlined on the Paris Agreement. The effective determination of management of climate change key risks start with the understanding of strategy and objectives. The key risks provide insight into potential risks that may be affected in realization of objectives and may indicate the presence of the new opportunities. For this study, risk management standard ISO 31000-2015 will be used as the guide to management of risk programs within climate change. And risk management will form the guiding principle of decision making at all levels. Performance management and reporting. Currently, governments are increasingly under pressure to document or measure performance to show progress towards the achievement of climate change and improve the accountability. So reporting and verification of climate change action is required. It also allows the evaluation and giving feedback to formation of climate change related policies and encourage their impact efficiency. Measurement and reporting of climate change performance will assist in alerting stakeholders towards trends of achieving the objective. Okay, next slide. And resilience is very critical when it comes to managing climate change. As we know that the world is facing high levels of uncertainty and volatility, it is critical for government and organizations to build resilience in their system and processes for them to prosper in the complex and turbulent world. So resilience mainly comes down to 3 things, which is ability to adapt to changes, anticipate what might happen next, and absorb the shocks when they come along. Resilience is requires the ability to make good decisions informed by an understanding of what are the intended objectives and resources available in assisting to achieve these objectives. It will also allow the mapping of actions necessary to remain more resilient. And engagement of stakeholders is one of the critical processes when you're dealing with climate change. The stakeholders need to be engaged through several engagement channels, and they need to be engaged throughout the whole processes of climate change. This will assist in understanding the foundation of decision made and reasoning behind the actions, and will promote the understanding and awareness and help obtaining feedback support in decision making. And stakeholder engagement brings inclusiveness and ownership of processes within the climate change. And from this study, what we intend to do, we've come up with 4 conceptual designs, which is the first recommendation. We will have to look at the task of managing the climate carbon emission by unpacking all the 200 standards pertaining to climate change to understand how will this standard will help us in managing climate change going forward. And also we'll have to we look at the performance measures that are recommended by the standard to allow us to manage them better, and measure them against as well the peak, plateau, and decline as a strategy for managing climate change for South Africa. And the second recommendation, we look at the how can we employ the ISO standard 31000 to manage risk related to climate change, and they also do the assessments of the risk related to climate change and consequences. And the third recommendation, we need to look at the measurement and reporting, and also mapping the objective to risk and KPIs to ensure that we don't miss any step toward the achievement of climate change objectives. And the fourth recommendation will be looking at how can we employ the ISO standard 22301 2014, the standard for business continuity management requirements, as a major resource of managing climate change. And in conclusion, the complexity of climate change requires a multifaceted approach. The proposed quality standard that we want to develop will need to be internationally acceptable in collection of data, analysis, measuring, and reporting, so that whatever we present into the international community will be acceptable and have integrity. Climate change is equivalent to poverty. It's man-made, and it is only men with conditioned behavioral practices that could charter the new course for the environment and exercise the measuring and reporting to manage the reducing of the greenhouse gas from human activity of industrialization.